Why did you decide you wanted to talk now?
I felt like it was time. A lot has happened in my personal life, in my career, in the culture. It's about responsibility and coming forward and being brave and giving my part of the story.
Your reaction to that verdict?
Shock. I was absolutely shocked, and afraid. I'm standing there, and the verdict comes down. I say, how is that possible? Based off the evidence, based off the prosecution's evidence, let alone our evidence. How is that possible?
But after only hours of deliberation, a jury of his peers agreed with prosecutors that he did physically injure his then-girlfriend, Grace Jabbari, in an incident last March.
What happened exactly, do you know?
No, I don't know. She went unconscious.
That 911 call from Majors came hours after an argument broke out with Jabbari in the back seat of an SUV, when Majors received a text from another woman saying, "Oh, how I wish to be kissing you." Jabbari testified that when she grabbed the phone, Majors tried to get it back, fracturing her finger and giving her a cut behind her ear.
She says inside the car, you hit her in the face,
Yeah.
twist your arm behind her back, fracture her middle finger.
Yeah, that did not happen.
How did those injuries come about?
I wish to God I knew. That would give clarity. That would give me some type of peace about it.
But you're confident you didn't cause
I have no
them.
question.
Surveillance video shows Majors getting out of the car, followed by Jabbari, whom he then puts back inside the vehicle. What happens next is what the defense remains focused on. Majors runs off, and Jabbari chases after him.
If you watch those videos and you reverse that, and you saw a black man chasing a young white girl down the street, screaming and crying, that man is going to be shot and killed in the streets of New York City.
Majors' defense team shared these photos, which he says show the injuries he received that night, which were deemed inadmissible in court.
How were you injured?
My injuries were a scratch on my hand, you know, from clawing for the phone, and I had a gash on my, at the time I had a beard. Under my beard I had essentially a fingernail scratch on my, I guess my cheek from pressure, and that bled overnight.
But prosecutors say Majors was the aggressor. District Attorney Alvin Bragg says the evidence presented throughout this trial illustrated a cycle of psychological and emotional abuse. In court, prosecutors pointed to a previous argument during which he knocked a candle to the floor.
I completely lost my temper in that moment and threw it all on the ground. It's not something I would want my child to do, and I did that. I absolutely did that, and felt terrible about it.
The prosecution also played audio Jabbari had recorded earlier in the relationship, where Majors encouraged her to act more like Coretta Scott King and Michelle Obama.
I'm a great man, a great man. I am doing great things, not just for me, but for my culture and for the world. That is actually the position I'm in. The woman that supports me needs to be a great woman.
There are some who question, especially in the black community, as you're probably well aware, that people were saying, well, why was he telling this woman to be like Coretta Scott King and Michelle Obama?
It was me trying to give an analogy of what it is I'm aspiring to be. You know, these great men, Martin, President Obama, and trying to give a reference point to that. One of the things I also say is, like, I need her, in that case Grace, to make the same sacrifices that I am making.
In a statement to ABC News, an attorney for Jabbari said in part, "It is not at all surprising that Mr. Majors continues to take no accountability for his actions," adding, "The timing of these new statements demonstrates a clear lack of remorse for his actions."
Do you feel you're not responsible for her injuries at all?
I shouldn't have been in the car. I shouldn't have stepped out of the relationship. I shouldn't have been in the relationship. If I'm not in the car, none of this is happening. If I leave the relationship, None of this is happening. If I'm man enough or brave enough to say, I want to see somebody else, or I'm done now, I'm not in that car. We're not here. I'm responsible for those things.
But none of her injuries.
I can't say that. None of her injuries.